Do you struggle when choosing a toner? Are you overwhelmed by the choice of hair colour out there? Maybe your formulas and mixes don't quite get the hair to the colour you want it to be. Well, whether you're a hair professional or a consumer, this video contains everything you need to know for my easy peasy process on how you can get great results from your toners every single time. Hello and welcome to the world of Craig. Yes, that's me, I'm Craig, and this is my channel where we get into all things hair and sometimes a little bit of beauty. Now, if you've not been here before, hello, I've been a hairstylist and a hair colorist for 36 years. I know, I don't look old enough, I am old enough. And I've been bringing you education here on YouTube for a long time now, for about 6 years, I think, 7 years, free education for everybody. And if you're coming back, hello for another look, thank you very much. So, I get lots of DMs on Instagram and I get comments on here. Remember, I have a policy that you leave me a comment, I will always get back to you. But recently I've had a lot of DMs on Instagram of people asking me for specific toners to help them with their hair or their clients. And I will always reply to you, but it is quite tricky for me to be very specific when I'm not there with you and I don't see lots of pictures and I don't know all the hair history, etc, etc. So this video, as you've already seen in my natty little intro, is all about giving you everything you need in order to be able to diagnose and formulate the right toners, whether you're a hair professional or a consumer. So without further ado, enough of that, let's get on with the video. Now, successfully diagnosing what your formula needs to be is a process, it's a system, and it has a beginning and an end which gives you a result. Before we get into this as well, just to say that if you enjoy this video and find it helpful, please share it with other people, please do all of this, please give it a like, make sure your notifications are on. We need to just get that in at the beginning of the video. And this video is going to focus specifically on toning hair because that's what I get the most questions about. But if you enjoy this, then let me know in the comments if you want one on grey coverage or if you want one on lifting hair. I can do lots and lots of different lifting hair using tint specifically, but I can break them down into specific areas, but this one's going to be all about toning. So it's a diagnostic process. So the first step in that process is you need to determine what colour the natural base is and what colour you have lifted the hair. Maybe you haven't lifted the hair at all. Maybe you're toning somebody, you're adding colour to somebody with a demi-permanent colour that has brunette hair, okay? And these rules apply whether you're using a demi-colour or a semi-colour, but we're not gonna talk about oxidative dyes, which are permanent colours in this video. It's gonna be all about demis and semis. So first of all, you need to determine what the natural hair colour is and what level, the hair has lifted to. And to do that, we use a chart like this. Now, these levels, they go from 1 being black and 10 being lightest blonde. That can be different from brand to brand, but generally, this is a kind of international, global system of determining, that's the one, what is very early on a Sunday morning, what level someone's hair is. So for instance, I have recently gone back to brunette, thank you very much. My natural level, I'm around a 6 with some grey hair. So my natural level would be a 6, okay? If you look on the chart, yes, I'm a level 6, but it's really important that that's the first thing you do. Maybe you have some natural hair and you have some lightened hair. So the first things first is use this chart to determine what levels that hair is. If you're all the same colour, then that's cool. But you need to know what both, if you've got hair that's lifted, partially lightened, or maybe you've got some roots and then you've got some lightened hair on the ends, you need to determine what those levels are using this. First things first. Now, it's important to mention here that we have the most incredible tool about our person to diagnose what colour we want to use and we want to be, and that is our eyes. So please trust what you see, and if you use all of the things I'm going to tell you about in this video, then it does become a lot easier, and after using them for a period of time, you kind of memorize a lot of these things, and then it just comes to you in a system like I am going to share with you. So trust what you see. So once you have diagnosed what level you are and what level any hair you've lightened to, you need to understand very clearly, specifically if it's lightened hair, so if all of you blondes out there or hairdressers that do a lot of blondes, or if you find that you don't get the results that you want often from your toners on your clients, then this is the chart for you. And this is an underlying pigment chart, okay? And you'll see that it has levels on it too. Pops it in whilst he's editing. You'll see it has levels on it too. And this is super important. I've been colouring hair for a long time, so I have this in my memory, but this is probably the chart, along with the next thing I'm going to talk about, that will help you the most. Okay, so even if you have to screenshot this and print it out or go on the Tinterweb and find a copy of this, there are lots of different ones. Some brands have slightly different ones. And in this video, I am talking generally, okay? And these rules apply regardless of any brand that you are using, okay? This is science. It's science. It's the science of color. So the underlying pigment, determining that will then take you on. And please, 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 if you take one thing from this video, it is this chart. Whether you're at home and you're doing your own hair or you're a hair professional, this chart is super important. So once you have that and you've determined the underlying pigment of the hair that you are going to tone, then we move on to this. Yes, it's a colour wheel, and another extremely important part of this whole process. Now, you can get colour wheels that break things down into, minute shades and tints and, different variations of things, and that's completely fine, but that can be quite overwhelming for a lot of people and overcomplicate things, in my opinion. All opinions are my own. So this is the kind of colour wheel that I would suggest if you're, just getting into hair colouring, or if you've always been unhappy about the results that you get in salon, or if you're a consumer at home, or if you do hair at home. This is the colour wheel. This kind of thing is what I would suggest, okay? Now, what you need to decide now at this point is what you want your final result to be. We've already determined from our underlying pigment that we've exposed on that blonde hair or that lightened hair, because it might not be blonde, you might be a level 1 and you've only lifted it to a level 3, okay? But once you've determined what the underlying pigment is, you need to decide, and this is important, if you want to be cooler or warmer. Now, please remember this. Gets very serious, leans in. The cooler you make hair, the darker it will look, okay? The warmer you make hair, the brighter and more light it will reflect, okay? So the cooler hair is, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel, there is a whole playlist called Hair Color Theory. I will link it down below, but please go and check that out if you're into sort of hair color theory and the science of hair color. So the cooler you make hair, the more light it absorbs and the darker it will look. And the warmer you make hair, the more light it will reflect. So it will look brighter and often lighter. So using this colour wheel, you already know, I tell you what, let's pop it on screen. We already know from our underlying pigment what the tone in the hair is. So say for example, and I am going to be giving you a full example later on with one of my clients who I've got content from, so I can show you exactly what I did and the result that I got. But say for example, somebody is a level 7. You've lifted them to a level 7 on here. So you know that the underlying undertone, the pigment that's been exposed in the hair, is that is orange yellow, okay? So therefore, you would go to your colour wheel and you would look at what is the opposite of that colour if you want a cool result, if you want to neutralise that orange yellow, and then you would pick. So let's go directly opposite, inserts an arrow on colour wheel. So we know that the opposite of orange is blue, and if there's some yellow in the hair, then you also need to use some violet. So your formula would have both orange and violet. How much orange and violet is up to the result that you want. When you ask me for formulas, and that's completely fine, and I will always reply, but I can't be specific because I don't know how cool you want to be. If you want to be really cool, then it needs to have a lot of blue and a lot of violet, but then you need to understand that the result will look darker. So you use this chart in order to understand the underlying pigment, and then you're going to colour, you're going to formulate a colour for, and then you use the colour wheel to help you decide what the exact opposite of that is. For example, just a very, very brief example, if you lift someone's hair or you've lifted your own hair and it is red, then your formula needs to have green. So it's really, really simple. These two things are absolutely genius at helping you get the result you want. But remember, the cooler you go, the darker it will look, and the warmer you go, the more it will reflect the light and it will look brighter. Simple. So we've determined the natural level of the hair that's been lifted, we know what we're doing, we know what colour we want to be, we know the underlying pigment, we have determined whether we want to be cool or warm, etc, etc. But a word on colour houses, numbering and lettering systems, okay? Some colour houses use numbers and they're normally 1 to 9 and each number represents a different tonal value, and then some colour houses use letters. Some use both actually, which in my opinion I think is the best, colour houses if you're watching. And they all want to differentiate often from themselves, from other brands, and that's completely fine because they are all slightly different, and that's why I can't be mega specific about every different colour brand. I have used most of them, but if they're using a number to differentiate the tone, the first number will be the level of that actual formula, what's in the tube or the bottle, and then the second number will be the tone. Sometimes they have 2 tonal numbers. And then if they're using letters, the first number will be the level. So say for instance, it's 9N. So it's a level 9 and it's a neutral or natural. Now, the thing to remember about different colour houses and different brands is that they have nuances to them. So colour houses will be similar. For instance, Redken and Schwarzkopf, there will be similarities between a violet from Schwarzkopf and a violet from Redken, but they won't be the same. And that's just the way that things are because everybody formulates colour to be slightly differently. The bases of the colour are different, but what I'm basically trying to say in a long way around is it's very important that you understand what those tones in that brand are. So if you, excuse me, I'm just getting over a rather bad head cold. If you're using Schwarzkopf, then you need to get the chart and you need to understand what the numbering system is. And for example, if you're using Redken, then you need to understand what the underlying pigments in those colors are. But this is all part of diagnosing exactly how to mix the right formula. And that's something that once you've worked out all the other stuff is really, really going to help you. Now, I fully understand that if you've got this far in the video, you might well be thinking, goodness me, that's a lot of information and a lot to take in. But once you put those, things into practice, it really isn't that confusing and it's very straightforward if you follow that system. Now, let's have an example to perhaps make everything much clearer. Now, this is gorgeous human being, Amy, who is a client of mine. I'll pop some video in here. We're gonna have a look at the process. And Amy is about a natural level 4/5. She's got very deep hair naturally. She probably leans more towards a 5, okay? She came into me and I obviously would determine what her natural color was. I've been highlighting her hair for a while, and then I did some highlights and I think I used 20 volume lightener, which is what I would always use. I never go above 20 volume lightener, and I lifted her hair, as you can see here, to around a level 8, okay? So there's yellow and there is orange because we know from our diagnostic process that that's the pigment at a level 8, yellow-orange. Some charts do vary, but yellow-orange generally. So, and she wanted a neutral, natural result. So she wanted some of the warmth neutralized, but she didn't want her hair to look drab or cool. So we lifted to that level 8. I know in my head that colour wheel off by heart, so I needed a formula that had violet and blue. And in this instance, I use Shades EQ Gloss because I use a lot of that product. It's a product I've used a long time and I love it. But these rules do apply regardless of whichever brand. If you were going to tone her hair with something else, then you would still, if you'd lifted to a level 8 and there was orange and yellow and orange, you would still use violet and blue. So I had a mix, I think, on her hair that was a mixture of 8VB and 7N. So that's 8 violet blue and 7N, which in Shades EQ also has a soft violet blue tone to it. I mixed 1 to 1 because I didn't want it to be too powerful and too drab, and then that's the result. Yes, very, very pretty. So that's basically it in a nutshell. If you follow those steps, you can't go wrong. Now, of course, these colour science rules work for whatever it is that you're formulating for, and not just for neutralising or cancelling out warmth. For example, and a very brief one, a quick one, because I've got my eye on how long this video is going to be. If you have lifted your hair or someone else's hair to a level 9.5, say, and you want an icy blonde result, because there's a lot of that, it's very popular, isn't it? You want an icy blonde result, so that would be around a level 9, 9.5. So there's going to be yellow and gold in the hair, inserts colour wheel here, yellow and gold in the hair, and the opposite of that is violet. But if your formula has too much violet in it, then the result will be deeper and darker than you want it to be, and it won't have that zingy result. So for example, in that instance, and if I was using Shea Secret Gloss, if I was using pretty much any toner brand to be in it, any demi-permanent colour, I would use something that was violet, and they're normally on a level 9 or a 10, and I would add clear into the mix, and that's going to be enough to get rid of enough of the yellow that you don't see that violet, but you get that very pure, clean, icy blonde formula. And that can all be worked out using the diagnostic tools in this video. So if you've got to the end, a huge thank you for watching. And as always, if you have a question or you want to tell me what your favorite formulas are or your diagnostic pointers, then please leave them in the comments below. And as I've said already in the video, if you leave a comment, I will always get back to you. I have an Instagram, which is full of my hair day to day, and a TikTok too, which is full of other bits of hair stuff. Some of the content on there is original and only on TikTok, but there's a bit of everything on there too. So a huge thanks for watching this. You all take lots of care, and I'll see you all in the next one.